One day at the airport, on my way back from work, I ran into an old classmate. It was a guy named Ethan who had persistently harassed me from 6th to 9th grade. Because of Ethan, I was driven to drop out of high school. Even as an adult, Ethan hadn't changed. Seeing me, he immediately demeaned me, calling me a dropout, a loser. For a moment, I almost lost my cool, but I managed to contain my anger and left the scene. Later, Ethan and I would cross paths again at the airport. "Hey, dropout! This is what a plane looks like!" Ethan sneered at me. When it became apparent that I was the pilot, Ethan's reaction was unexpected. My name is Oliver, 38 years old, single, and a pilot by profession. When I mention my career, it sounds like I've had an impressive history, but in reality, I once dropped out of high school. Between 6th and 9th grade, I suffered from persistent harassment. The root of my trouble started with a falling out with Ethan, my classmate. Ethan was extroverted, friendly, and well-liked by everyone. I, on the other hand, was serious and decent at studies, but not so good at socializing. That's why I was so relieved when Ethan approached me soon after I enrolled, worried whether I would make any friends. Our conversation started because we had both been in the same soccer club when we were in elementary school. Additionally, Ethan and I joined the soccer team together. We both joined the soccer team, but in our group, I was always the butt of the jokes. Ethan had a charm in turning even my inability to counter the teasing into a source of laughter, which was as cruel as it was captivating. Initially, I accepted my place in the group, even finding joy in making others laugh with my actions. But slowly, our relationship became twisted. The way we garnered laughs escalated gradually. At first, I dismissed it as part of friendship, but my ambiguous attitude towards these jokes was a mistake. The words gradually turned into blatant teasing and personal attacks. Sometimes Ethan would half-joking put me in a wrestling hold. Even when I laughed it off and told him to stop, no one intervened. Instead, they all laughed, watching Ethan and me. I'm not making them laugh. I'm being laughed at, I realized. Ethan was just enjoying humiliating me. That realization made staying in the group painful. The teasing that I once brushed off with a laugh became unbearable. One day, while walking down the hallway, I was slapped on the head with the usual, "Hey!" Normally, I would just laugh it off with a "What's up?" But that day, I firmly said, "Stop it!" Ethan, looking annoyed, retorted, "What's with you lately? You getting all moody? I'd let you in our group, so at least look like you're having fun." "Can't do that. It's not fun." "What? You always used to laugh. Besides, for someone named Oliver, you're getting too bold." Ethan said this with an intimidating voice, glaring at me. But I stood my ground, staring back at him. Ethan eventually left saying, "Fine then," and quickly joined the rest of his group. From the next day, my life became a living hell. At school, Ethan and the others he'd influenced, even classmates not involved, started ignoring me. It would have been better if it had ended at that. But they soon began actively harassing me, with Ethan as the ringleader. At first, I tried to stay strong, showing up at school and extracurricular activities, but the pain soon became unbearable, and I started skipping both. Entering 8th grade with the added stress of adolescence, their behavior became even more intense. I missed nearly half of 8th grade, and naturally my grades and evaluations plummeted. I was once considered for a renowned private school in the state during 7th grade, but now I was barely managing to qualify for a lesser-known private school. Still, I tried to study, hoping to escape the situation by graduating middle school. However, things didn't go as planned, and to my dismay, I ended up in the same public school as Ethan. In middle school, I had some respite because Mr. Brown, my 7th grade English teacher, took an interest in my situation. He even reprimanded Ethan and his group. But high school was relentless. Hoping to build new relationships in high school, I unfortunately found myself in the same class as Ethan.
"Oh, it's Oliver!"
Ethan declared as I entered the classroom, grabbing my collar and announcing in front of everyone.
"Let's all tease this guy. He's always been the one to get picked on since middle school. He enjoys it, right?"
Initially, my classmates were unsure, but once they decided I was an easy target, they became merciless. Unlike middle school, there were no teachers to protect me. Eventually, my spirit broke and I found myself unable to go to school. Failing to meet the credit requirements, I was held back a year, and that's when I dropped out of high school. The person who tried to save me was Mr. Brown, my middle school mentor. He was the only teacher who noticed my plight and reached out. Not only did he scold Ethan and his group, but in my final year, he provided his English prep room as a refuge from Ethan's torments. I would go to the English prep room after school every day to talk to Mr. Brown. During my struggling 8th grade, he even taught me one-on-one. Sadly, despite Mr. Brown's efforts, Ethan's behavior never changed. Still, I believe Mr. Brown did everything he could. He was my only ally and emotional support at school. Just having Mr. Brown around made it possible for me to attend school until graduation. I kept in touch with Mr. Brown through frequent letters even after graduation. But as the situation in high school remained unchanged and my spirit was broken, I lost the motivation to go to school and didn't feel like replying to Mr. Brown's letters, leaving them unanswered. One day, Mr. Brown came to my house to apologize in person.
"I'm truly sorry I couldn't be more helpful back then,"
he said with a pained expression. When he learned I couldn't attend high school anymore, he brought a pile of information on correspondence and night schools.
"How about starting over in a new environment?"
he suggested.
"It's no use.
I replied. My self-esteem shattered from being constantly ridiculed by Ethan and his group. Mr. Brown encouraged me.
"Oliver, you'll be fine. With a change of environment, you'll flourish."
Pushed by his enthusiasm, I started studying for my high school diploma through correspondence education. Originally, I didn't hate studying, and with the active support of my parents and Mr. Brown, I made significant progress, contrary to my past struggles. Frustrated by how I had broken under harassment, I immersed myself in studies, refusing to let those bullies ruin my life. During that time, my parents told me,
"It's great that you're always working hard on your studies, but it's not good to focus too much on them."
To give me a break, they took me on a trip. That was when I flew on a plane for the first time. The first surprise was the plane's imposing presence before boarding. I remembered how I used to love looking at aircraft in vehicle encyclopedias as a child. Flying through the air, I was completely captivated by the world above. The gradually fading cityscape, the thrill of breaking through clouds, and the clear sky beyond. The beauty of the scenery through the plane's small window made me feel free from everything. It was so refreshing that it seemed to erase all the regrets and burdens of the past.
"I want to fly freely in the sky. I want to be a pilot."
This vague thought solidified into a firm goal by the time I returned from the trip. It was the first time I had a dream, and I felt my heart leap for the first time in a long while. However, becoming a pilot is not an easy path. It would also be a burden on my parents. But I didn't want to give up on something again. While I was wrestling with these thoughts, Mr. Brown visited me again.
"Look at you! Oliver, you seem much brighter."
He immediately noticed the change in me.
"How's your studying going?"
he asked.
"It's going really well lately,"
I replied.
"I've found a goal."
Mr. Brown looked at me encouragingly. Would he laugh? Would he say it's impossible for me? For a moment, these thoughts crossed my mind, but I knew Mr. Brown wouldn't say such things. Gathering my courage, I said,
"I've been thinking, I want to become a pilot."
Mr. Brown's eyes widened, and tears quickly filled them. Seeing his face break into a joyful smile, I almost cried too.
That's great! I'll support you! Finding a goal is great! Keep it up!
Mr. Brown said with a trembling voice, taking my hand. His words cemented my resolve. I then shared my aspiration to become a pilot with my parents. Mom seemed a bit worried, but Dad said,
That's great! You've seemed much more determined lately. So that's what it was all about. Dad will support you all the way.
Mom nodded in agreement, saying, Yes, that's right. I studied hard, passed the high school equivalency exam and the aviation school entrance exam. I worked diligently in my studies and training at the aviation school and eventually obtained my pilot's license. But I didn't stop there. Aiming to become an even better pilot, I won a scholarship for a master's program in Germany and studied advanced aviation technology there. My paper on the impact of lateral forces caused by aircraft tire damage received higher acclaim than I expected, paving the way for my doctoral studies. After earning my PhD, I finally felt a sense of achievement. I considered staying abroad for work, but with my parents waiting back home, I decided to return. Back home, I got a job as a pilot with an airline in New York. One day, while walking to the airport exit in my casual clothes, a man in dirty work clothes called out,
Oliver!
I recognized the face immediately and was momentarily speechless. It was Ethan, the same person who cruelly mistreated me from 6th to 9th grade.
What's up? Long time no see. Ended up a high school dropout, loser, huh? Why are you even here? Well, I guess you're probably a janitor or something, right? Got anything to say? Dropout, Mr. Oliver.
I was traumatized, forgetting where I was, my mind going blank. Ethan's tone, attitude, and expression brought back memories of those hellish school days. Amused by my stunned state, Ethan boastfully mentioned that he now worked here as a mechanic. He obviously thought I was a janitor, his demeanor openly dismissive. It seemed like he had no remorse for almost breaking me as a person. You have no idea of the pain you caused me. I almost lost my composure, but managed to contain my anger at the last moment, saying only,
I see. Good luck.
Before quickly leaving. My heart was pounding long after Ethan was out of sight. Later, when the shock had somewhat subsided, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in a while. It was Mr. Brown. He had heard about my achievements and, inspired, decided to pursue his long-abandoned dream of graduate studies. He had finally been accepted to a prestigious university in the UK. As I joyfully congratulated Mr. Brown, he said,
I have a favor to ask. I want to fly to the UK on a plane piloted by Oliver. Of course, sir.
I responded eagerly. I then made arrangements to ensure that I would be the pilot on Mr. Brown's flight. And then, the day of Mr. Brown's departure arrived. It was a very cold day, and I, in my captain's uniform with a jacket over it, was walking around the aircraft for an external inspection. That's when I encountered Ethan again. Everyone was at their respective post, and there were no other people around Ethan and me. Ethan, seeing me, mockingly swung a tool as if to hit me and laughed.
Hey!
I flinched, and he said with the same childishness as before,
What? Got scared? It's just a joke. Hey, Dropout! This is an airplane,
he said mockingly. Just then, a voice from behind me called out, Captain! It was Miss Anderson, a cabin attendant.
Captain?
A surprised Ethan was ignored as Miss Anderson looked straight at me. Captain, it's time for the flight. Please prepare.
What?
Understood. I'll be right there. Leaving a stunned Ethan behind, I quickly walked towards Miss Anderson. Ethan clicked his tongue behind me, but I felt a sense of satisfaction, as if I had finally outdone him. Soon it was time to board, and passengers began entering the aircraft one after another. Spotting Mr. Brown among them, I couldn't help but smile. Once all the passengers were seated and the hatch was closed, I introduced myself as the captain and promised a safe journey to everyone on board. I knew Mr. Brown would hear my voice. As a captain, I felt even prouder to be in this position. Ethan in those times were long past. I can't forget the humiliation of those days, but I'm not the same person I was back then. Reminding myself of this, I prepared for takeoff and the plane safely lifted off. However, there was an unexpected event mid-flight. As the control tower reported a sudden change in weather, the aircraft was hit by a terrifying storm. The aircraft shook violently, an extraordinary turbulence. Panic ensued in the cabin, and amidst the chaotic reports in my headphones, I felt a moment of confusion. But my more than a decade of experience wasn't for show. Moreover, the situation was similar to what I had written about in my paper. "Stay calm, it's okay, I can handle this," I reassured myself. Working together with the co-pilot and cabin attendants, we secured the safety of the aircraft and calmed the panic. Eventually, we managed to escape the critical situation, and the aircraft gradually stabilized. Seeing the airport and successfully landing felt like a huge relief, but my job wasn't over yet. As the captain, I apologized for the incident and wished success for all passengers and crew members, completing my duties. Of course, the image of a certain mentor was in my mind throughout. Some time later, the details of the malfunction that troubled the aircraft were revealed. A part in a specific area was found to be damaged. Despite thorough double checks, it was unclear why the maintenance had been inadequate. When the authorities analyzed the camera footage, it was discovered that the malfunction was due to Ethan's actions. It was a case of deliberate tampering. Initially, Ethan denied the accusations, but when he saw me, his face flushed. Observing his strange reaction, the others turned their attention to me. I briefly explained the background of my relationship with Ethan.
"It's all in the past. Why are you still holding on to it? That's why you're foolish."
I blurted out unintentionally, and Ethan seemed to realize he had cornered himself. He tried to deny it in a panic, but it was too late. Everyone present cast condemning glances at him. I'm no longer the weak person I was back then. Looking Ethan in the eye, I said, "You're the one who's been holding on to the past. Your actions could have cost lives. Do you realize the magnitude of what you've done?" Following my words, others started to express their criticisms towards Ethan. Pale and shrinking, Ethan eventually broke down and apologized, but that didn't absolve him of his crimes. Having admitted his guilt, Ethan was disciplined and resigned, facing criminal charges. What Ethan did, both in the past and now, is inexcusable. However, I couldn't help but feel a certain pity for him, driven to such lengths by his obsession with pulling me down. A few days later, perhaps by some stroke of luck, I found myself dining with Miss Anderson. She had asked me, "Would you like to have dinner together on our next day off?" Miss Anderson, always a cool beauty as an excellent cabin attendant, looked even more stunning in her casual attire. I had secretly been attracted to her for a long time, but had almost given up, thinking she couldn't possibly be interested in me, being 8 years younger. However, our relationship rapidly grew closer after that incident.
Is this the suspension bridge effect? No, maybe it's something different.
While thinking this and eating, Miss Anderson said, "You were really impressive the other day, Mr. Oliver." I was at a loss for words, and she chuckled softly.
What do you mean?
"When there was trouble, he gave calm instructions. Thanks to you, I was able to stay composed and act. It was admirable." Her compliments made me blush.
But involving many people in my problem with Ethan, I feel...
"That modesty of yours is also admirable, you know."
Are you teasing me?
"Of course not." Miss Anderson smiled, holding her hand to her mouth, looking genuinely happy. Her surprising actions didn't end there. "I'm the type who actively shows interest when I like someone," she said. I was stunned, feeling my face turn red. After that, Miss Anderson and I started dating. Although we both often find ourselves in the sky or abroad due to our jobs, she was always eager to travel to foreign countries in our private time. Since I also love flying, traveling together became a very enjoyable experience. France, Sweden, Vietnam, Australia. Together, we created many memories in various places. Each journey seemed to heal the scars in my heart. Soon, I plan to propose to her. I intend to invite Mr. Brown to our wedding, believing it's a strange fate he has somehow connected for us. That's the feeling I have.
Hey, is Marie making the food to celebrate the new year this time? My mother-in-law immediately reacted to this, waving her hands in front of her face and laughing. No way, that's impossible. My daughter-in-law can't cook at all. She's a hopeless housewife who can't even make food for the New Year's celebration. I do all the cooking around here. Her laughter was extremely unpleasant. It wasn't a joke, nor was it just going along with the mood of the moment. It was nothing but an insult to me. I had reached my breaking point. My next move was to fight back. I had to give it my all. I am Marie, a 28-year-old who just got married last year. I'm a full-time housewife who enjoys cooking. Though it hurts sometimes that my husband is content with anything as long as it's edible, he's kind, and we live in a newly remodeled large house with a spacious island kitchen I've always longed for. I guess it's the ideal life, but I had a problem since the beginning of my marriage. It was my mother-in-law. She claims to be good at cooking and thinks I'm a failure of a wife who can't cook. Well, I could endure it if she just thought that, but she was a very troublesome type who would go around saying it. Just yesterday, she was complaining to the neighbor's wife, loud enough for me to hear, while I was hanging laundry. My daughter-in-law can't even cook properly! Oh, it's terrible! I wonder what kind of education she had. My son is so unfortunate. I can't believe it. I was so angry that I almost broke the clothespin in my hand. I could endure her criticizing me, but I couldn't stand her speaking ill of my parents. I deeply respect my parents and have learned countless things from them. Yet, without knowing anything, or even trying to know, my mother-in-law was bad-mouthing me every day. Today, too, she seemed busy ruining my reputation, and I could hear her shrill voice gossiping with the neighborhood. She doesn't even know how to use seasoning. I have to cook, or else there's no taste. Why did my son marry someone like her? Then the neighbors chimed in. Freda has had it tough too. And why don't you teach her? I really wish they would stop. I gripped the glass in my hand so hard that it cracked. In the evening, when my husband Gregory came home, my mother-in-law was in the shower. I saw my chance and decided to unload everything I'd been holding back on Gregory. Can't you do something about your mother? She's going around the neighborhood every day saying I can't cook. Can't you say something to her, Gregory? As I put away the jacket Gregory handed me, I told him about my mother-in-law's behavior. Gregory doesn't particularly love his mother, and he does care for me, so I thought he would defend me. I believed he would sympathize and say, that must have been tough. But what came out of his mouth was entirely different. Well, Mom has always been particular about cooking, Gregory said, scratching his head and looking troubled. Particular about cooking? I almost blurted out. With that heavy seasoning? I stared at Gregory in disbelief, but he was dead serious. Come on, she's a good cook, right? Well, I don't really know much about good or bad cooking. Anyway, please get along with Mom. That's a wife's duty, isn't it? With that, Gregory left the room. Is this a joke? That was the only thought left in my mind. A good cook? A wife's duty? What does that even mean? All sorts of frustrations rushed into my heart at once. To be honest, and I hate to say it, but my mother-in-law's cooking is far from delicious. She's been in charge of all the cooking for the past year to prevent me from doing it, but I've never found it tasty. She's convinced that strong seasoning equals delicious. Gregory, who grew up with that taste, always finishes his meal without a fuss, but I honestly struggle to eat it every day. Continuing to eat such heavily seasoned food is definitely not good for my health. and I even feel a sense of crisis that it might ruin my taste buds. I managed to eat it somehow, fearing what would be said if I left anything. Alone in the quiet bedroom, I let out a big sigh. The shock wasn't that Gregory didn't criticize his mother's cooking. It's a wife's duty, huh? It was that he didn't take me seriously. At times like this, I miss the taste of my parents' home cooking. A few weeks passed, and the atmosphere of the year-end became more pronounced. It would be my first New Year since getting married. In this house, it's a tradition for relatives to gather every New Year and eat a feast prepared by my mother-in-law. When Gregory told me this, I secretly thought, really? Even though I just responded with, oh. The relatives who come to eat my mother-in-law's cooking every year must be used to it by now, but I can't help but feel sorry for them. I may be criticized by my mother-in-law for having bland taste or not being able to cook properly, but I believe in my cooking skills. I trust my parents who taught me the techniques. I want to cook for everyone somehow, and I want to correct Gregory's taste buds. With that determination, I decided to ask my mother-in-law, even though I knew it was a long shot. Mother-in-law? About the food for the New Year's celebration? I called out to her back as she was energetically taking out large plates and pots in the kitchen. I'll help too. But the mother-in-law who turned around had already refused with her expression. Marie, you can't even cook properly, so how can you make food for the New Year's celebration? You know that not just our family, but all the relatives are gathering, right? That's why I'm saying this. I married into this family. It's my duty as a wife to... I desperately argued, but my mother-in-law just shook her head. No, no. Do you want to create a weird atmosphere right at the beginning of the new year? Everyone comes to eat my cooking. We can't disappoint them. If you understand, please don't get in the way. I could only bite back my frustration as I stared at her turned back. The new year arrived and the relatives began to gather. There were about 20 of them, more than I thought. Most of them I hadn't seen since the wedding. Marie, Happy New Year! Oh my, it's been a while. Have you gotten used to married life yet? I guided them to the very spacious dining room, exchanging greetings with each of the relatives who crowded in. When I first came to this house, I was surprised by its vastness, but it seems the unusually large dining room was designed for occasions like this. In the dining room, my mother-in-law was already talking with the relatives who had arrived. At that moment, one of the relatives said, "By the way, is Marie making the feast this year?" My mother-in-law immediately reacted to this, waving her hands in front of her face and laughing. "That's impossible. My daughter-in-law can't cook at all. She's a hopeless housewife who can't even make a New Year's celebration meal. I do all the regular cooking, you know." Her laugh was very unpleasant. It wasn't a joke, nor was it just going along with the mood. It was simply an insult to me. I had reached my breaking point. "Mother-in-law? Then please, let me make the New Year's celebration meal. If it tastes bad, how about you make a palate-cleansing dish?" The room went quiet at my proposal. After a beat, the relatives began to murmur. "Well, I don't want bad food, but... Well, but experience is everything. Isn't it fine? Yeah, if it fails, Frida will take care of it, it seems." My mother-in-law, who had been silently listening to the relatives' conversation, seemed to give up, sensing that the mood was shifting towards let's let Marie try. "Well then, I'll let you practice this year." Her words hinted at reluctance, but now I could cook. "Ladies and gentlemen, please indulge this hopeless housewife's whims this year." Though I had plenty to say to her, my heart was filled with the fact that I could cook proudly in front of all these witnesses. Now it's time for a counterattack. All that's left is to give it my all. In conclusion, the cooking was perfect. Before the beautifully arranged feast on the large plate, exclamations of admiration rose from the relatives. "Wow, it looks delicious! Well done, Marie! Really, this isn't something just anyone can make." Among such comments, my mother-in-law, who had gone shopping for the palate-cleansing dish, returned and glanced at my cooking. Looks good, I guess, but it's probably tasteless." She emphasized the word probably, clearly unwilling to acknowledge me, and then deliberately said, "Well, I must make the palate-cleansing dish," and hurried into the kitchen. Ignoring her, I went around, handing out paper plates and forks to the relatives. "Everyone, please enjoy." Even as she headed to the kitchen, my mother-in-law's back was clearly focused on us. The relatives, in turn, took the food and tasted it. "This is," someone muttered, their voice seemingly trembling. My mother-in-law laughed as if she were thoroughly pleased. "See? I told you! This is why she's a hopeless daughter-in-law. Everyone, you don't have to force yourselves to eat. I'll make a palate-cleansing dish right away." Her voice was triumphant, but it was soon drowned out by voices of joy. "This is the first time I've tasted such delicious New Year's celebration food. This is restaurant level. It's even better. It's like a hotel course meal. Marie, where did you learn to make this?" "Huh?" Standing in front of the lively crowd centered around the food, my mother-in-law was left speechless. Without anyone paying attention to my mother-in-law, all eyes were focused on me. Actually, I began deciding to reveal the truth to everyone. My family owns a historic French restaurant, known as a place where you can eat authentic French cuisine. It's even listed in the Michelin Guide. My father, the current 5th generation, oversees everything related to cooking, and my mother, who also comes from a family of chefs, supports him devotedly. I grew up watching my parents, and by the time I was in upper elementary school, I was learning to cook from them in earnest. My brother is set to take over, and even though I've left home after getting married, and probably won't be involved in the restaurant in the future, all the cooking knowledge I've learned from my parents is within me, and I'm proud of it. That's why I couldn't stand my mother-in-law's words and actions that denied my cooking skills. To deny my cooking is to deny my parents, and the restaurant that my ancestors have passed down through generations. That's the situation. Actually, I did tell you before we got married, mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, who tends to disregard others and look down on me, seemed to think of me as just a daughter of a small country restaurant. Furthermore, Gregory, who is utterly indifferent to food, probably doesn't even understand the difference between a family restaurant and authentic French cuisine. I can't help but wonder why I married into this family. "Marie!" When I turned to the voice calling me, several eyes were looking at me, somewhat hesitantly, but expectantly. "Can we eat more?" "I want to eat more too." Despite the substantial volume of the feast I had prepared, it had been completely consumed. Suddenly, I felt a surge of happiness, and almost cried. Being praised for the food I made should have been normal before I got married, but it seems I had completely forgotten that feeling in the past year. "Yes, I'll make more right away!" I dashed out of the room, passing by my mother-in-law, who was still standing still. Come to think of it, she had bought some ingredients. I decided to serve these people with all my might, no matter what I might be told later. "Mother-in-law, I'll use the ingredients, okay?" I gave a warning, but as I thought, there was no response. The ingredients were left as they were in the kitchen. As I reached to look inside the supermarket bag, someone entered the kitchen. Will you teach us how to cook too?" I looked up to see about 5 women standing in a row. They ranged in age, from around my age to about my mother-in-law's age, but their eyes all sparkled the same way. "The food was so delicious. We want to be as good as you." In retrospect, those words must have changed something inside me. I had never thought about teaching cooking before, but if there were people who felt that way about me, and if I could be of any help, I wanted to teach as much as I could. That's what I thought. "With pleasure!" I answered with a smile, and the room burst into excitement. Everyone was talking about how they would surprise their husbands by becoming good at cooking. And so, the impromptu cooking class began. Watching us cook with serious faces from a distance, my mother-in-law was silently cleaning up, and the finished dishes were met with more praise. I have to say, I actually found Frida's cooking a bit too salty for my taste. Marie's cooking is more delicate and refined. Truly professional French cuisine. While I was happy to be recognized and celebrated by everyone, I felt a bit awkward towards my mother-in-law and smiled vaguely. She didn't interrupt and focused on cleaning up. Just as I was thinking about saying something to ease the situation, Gregory delivered the final blow. "I really prefer Marie's cooking. Mom's strong flavors make me worry about salt and health. From now on, Marie should do the cooking, regularly." With those words, my mother-in-law seemed to have completely lost her place. And before I knew it, she had retreated to her room. After that, word of my cooking skills spread among the relatives, and I started receiving requests to teach cooking classes. At first, I hesitated, but remembering the excitement of the small cooking class I held on New Year's, and thinking that if people wanted my cooking skills, I accepted the request. Word of mouth spread quickly, and before I knew it, I was being featured in the media as a housewife who cooks authentic French cuisine. Now I receive teaching requests from all over the country. Life is truly unpredictable, and this was an unexpected turn of events. But I even had a conversation with my father in a cooking magazine. As for my mother-in-law, who had been spreading the word in the neighborhood that I was a bride who couldn't even cook properly, she stopped commenting on cooking altogether after that day. She stopped cooking altogether, and now I hold all the authority over cooking in the house. And we live peacefully, albeit busily.
Divorce me. I can't see you as a woman anymore.
One day, my husband blurted this out as if he had had enough. I shot back, "Fine, here's the divorce papers." Perfect timing. I was already thinking about divorce. There is no way I can spend the rest of my life with this man. I'll make him regret wasting my life. I'm Chloe, a 35-year-old housewife. I live with my husband Marty. Our cozy home was a wedding gift from my parents. I was so grateful they built it for us. I vowed to repay their kindness for the rest of my life. I want to show them their grandchild's face and be a dutiful daughter. But married life didn't turn out as smooth as I thought. We had a beautiful daughter. We named her Felicia, hoping she would bring smiles to everyone's faces. From the time she was a baby, she was so adorable that my cheeks would loosen every time I held her. Even though I lost sleep due to childcare, I never resented Felicia. My husband, however, didn't feel the same. "Hey, Marty, can you hold Felicia for a bit?"
What? No, I'm going to work on my bike. Don't interrupt my hobby time.
He never helped with childcare. Apparently, Marty got into biking after we got married and often left home for days on biking trips. Think about Felicia, you are her father. No matter how much I pleaded, he would just say,
I'll think about it.
or,
I'm busy right now.
and that's not the worst of it. Marty doesn't make much money. We are far from financially comfortable, yet he spends on bike gears and luxuries. If he keeps us up, we'll be in trouble when Felicia needs tuition. I've told him to be mindful of his spendings, but he just says,
It's my money, or what's wrong with spending it on my hobby?
he clearly doesn't think about our future and probably has no intention of saving. It's not just me who will suffer if we run out of money. It should be a concern for Marty too. But no matter how much I plead, he doesn't listen. I thought I had to start earning money. But when I said, I'll work, so please help with the chores, he replied,
Housework is a wife's job.
There's only so much time in a day. I can't do everything myself. Yet Marty never once offered to help. He would come home and lounge on the sofa or tinker with his bike as if it's my job to do all the housework. He's never even said thank you for juggling housework and childcare. I deeply regret marrying such a terrible man. Today, Marty left the house again saying he's going on a bike tour. I thought, good riddance, and went to take out the trash. Wait, what? I glanced at the parking lot and saw Marty's bike. He said he was going on a tour, so why is he gone for days? Is he cheating? Staying at his mistress' place for days? I acted quickly and hired a private investigator. As expected, he was cheating. Honestly, I had no love left for him, but I was trying my best for the sake of our family. He does whatever he wants, neglecting his family, but still having the audacity to cheat? There is no way I could love him anymore. I want to be free from this life. I want to live just for my adorable daughter. I had reached my breaking point. One evening after dinner, Marty, who was relaxing, suddenly looked serious and said,
"Divorce me. I can't see you as a woman anymore."
Finally, he said it. The words I had been waiting for. I wanted a divorce. He doesn't help with housework or childcare, earns a low salary, and has no clue how to manage money. I can't possibly share my life with such a man. Now, I'll be free from him. But I won't let it end with just a divorce. After all, he's treated me terribly. I'll make him regret using me like a maid. Fine, here's the divorce papers. I had already filled out the sections I needed to, because I wanted to get away from him as soon as possible. Marty looked surprised and said,
"Huh?"
Maybe he thought I would beg and cry? I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. He seemed suspicious of my readiness and asked,
"Are you sure?"
But I smiled and said, yes. I hurried him to fill out his part. Once I confirmed there were no errors, I felt relieved. By the way, there's something else I need to tell you. Even Marty looked uneasy. You are really a worthless man. You never help with housework or childcare, and you spend all your time on your bike hobby. You earn so little. Did you notice that just maintaining your bike was straining our finances? When I said I would work and asked you to help with housework and childcare, you said it's a wife's job. You never even thanked me for all the delicious meals I cooked for you. Marrying you was a total loss. I calmly listed all the wrongs he had done. Until now, I had accepted whatever he said. But if we are divorcing, there is no need to hold back. I let out all the pent-up frustration and blamed him for everything. Marty couldn't take it anymore and slammed the table as he stood up.
"You're the one to talk. I bring home the money. I provide for you people who just stay at home, and you're saying I can't spend it on my hobbies? You are the selfish one. Managing the household finances is a wife's job. You can't even do that. You're the worthless one. Women should just shut up and support their men."
What a terrible thing to say. What was I thinking sharing my life with such a man? I really had no judgment when it came to men. The only benefit of marrying him was having Felicia. There was no need to work so hard every day doing housework and childcare, being harshly criticized and even verbally abused. I should have acted sooner. But from now on, this man will struggle to even live. I am fully prepared for my final move. I placed a certain photo on the table.
"What the hell is this?"
Of course, Marty recognized what was in the photo. It was evidence of his affair provided by the private investigator. Pictures of him kissing a flashy woman, entering a neon-lit street, and going into an apartment that wasn't ours. I knew about your affair too. The woman you're seeing is young and beautiful, though it seems she's quite the player. At my words, my husband's eyes widened.
"What do you mean?"
Did you know? She's seeing other men too. You're just one of the guys she's playing. He mutters.
"That's a lie. You're making it up."
Clearly shaken by my words. But that's irrelevant to me. You know, you could be sued for alimony because of your infidelity, right? At the mention of alimony, he looks up.
"What? I should be the one asking for alimony. After all, you have said. If you're going to claim it, so will I."
I can't help but laugh at his absurd reasoning. He's going to claim alimony when he's clearly the guilty party? When he's the one who cheated? His stupidity is beyond saving. Go ahead and claim it if you want. I don't know if you will win, though.
"Yeah, I will. You'll regret divorcing me."
The one who will regret is you, I think, but I swallow those words. All right, let's divorce then. I had already packed some of my things ready for this moment. As I head for the door, I remember something. Oh, you should leave this house soon.
"What? Why?"
This house was bought by my parents. You have no ownership rights. If I'm not living here, they'll probably sell it. You have no right to stay. So pack up soon. He hadn't anticipated this about the house and shouts,
Wait, hey!
as I leave with our adorable daughter. Seeing her cute smile, I know I'll be living in an environment where I can properly protect her from now on. I refuse to live a life being used by a man like that. I'll live the way I want to. I'll live for my daughter, and I won't let anyone interfere with that. Later, as I had said, I did claim alimony from him. We communicated through lawyers, and it seemed he had hired a cheap one with the little money he had. But his arguments were so poor that it was clear he had hired a subpar lawyer. My goodness, I was really surprised. I never expected such a stupid demand. My lawyer later told me. Of course, he had no right to claim alimony from me, but he probably didn't understand that due to his lack of education. Now, he's struggling to pay the large sum of alimony I claimed. Moreover, I later sent evidence of his affair to his company. I was furious that he could treat me so horribly and still work there as if nothing happened. Word spread quickly in his small, low-paying company. He couldn't quit because he needed to pay the alimony, and now he's isolated at work. A friend who works at the same company told me, he is so self-conscious that he eats his lunch in the bathroom, which made me laugh. He had always been boastful, spreading all sorts of stories and acting important. So it's no surprise that his superficial friendships fell apart when word got out about his affair. By the way, his affair partner turned out to be the daughter of the company president, and as I had found out from the investigator, she was quite the player. The president, fond of his daughter, cut my husband loose. Now, he's been abandoned by his friends and his affair partner, and he is being ostracized at work. I feel sorry for him, but he needs to work hard to pay back the alimony. As for the house, my parents decided to sell it after they found out I had divorced and moved out. It was a decent house, so it sold for a good price, leaving him without a place to live. He seems to be living with his parents now, who are quite strict, so he's probably being put to work. He certainly won't have time for his bike hobby, let alone go on a multi-day tour. Losing his friends, his affair partner, and even his hobbies, there is a part of me that finds it a bit pitiful but also amusing. He probably can't relax at home anymore. He always said,
housework is the wife's job.
So I hope his parents pile it on him and he learns how hard it really is. And so, my long saga of revenge came to a close. While my ex-husband struggles with his life, our adorable daughter is growing up healthy and strong. Mama, Mama! Her wobbly steps, as she calls out to me and walks towards me, are irreplaceably precious, and now our family is growing.
Chloe, Felicia.
After the divorce, I got a job with the help of my parents to support us. That's where I met Roger, and we fell in love. He's a sincere and kind man who said,
you must have worked hard,
and held my hand even after knowing I was divorced. I feel like I can walk into the future with him. I had sworn off marriage, but maybe with him it will be different. He doesn't mind that I've been married before or that I have a child. He even dotes on little Felicia and visits her at my parents' house every weekend. Felicia has warmed up to him and calls him Daddy. The first time she did, he was so moved that he cried, and I knew he would love Felicia too. Now, I stand on the threshold of a new chapter in my life. Mama, you're pretty. My daughter hugs me tightly as I stand in my pure white dress. When I lift her, she happily kisses me on the cheek. This is my second walk down the aisle. The first time I was so nervous, I could barely see in front of me and focused only on making it to the end. But now, I can look forward with clarity. At the altar stands the man I love. I take a firm step forward, ready to embrace my new happiness. From now on, the three of us will weave our happiness together.
Amy, you only went to high school in the States? Yeah, I was preparing for college, but due to Dad's situation, I couldn't continue. I remember it being really tough. I chuckled a bit, recalling the rush when Dad suddenly got assigned to work in Switzerland. Wait, what? Amy, you're just a high school graduate? I seriously thought you had a college degree. I feel duped. Excuse me, John? My name is Amy. I got married at 27 and we've been newlyweds for just a month. I met my husband John through work. Not in the same office, but I was at the company where John came as a sales representative. He said he took a liking to me at first sight and pursued me. Given his sales background, he was really good at talking. Before I knew it, we were dating. Within just 3 months of dating, he proposed to me passionately, saying he didn't want anyone else to have me. Shockingly, within just 6 months of meeting, we decided to get married. Many advised us to take it slow. Maybe my long stint living in Switzerland influenced me, but I always preferred passionate people over calm ones. I genuinely loved John, who pursued me aggressively and proposed with such fervor. I believed he was the one for me. Sure, we didn't know much about each other, but that didn't matter. We felt it was enough just to be together and didn't care about a wedding ceremony. We registered our marriage the day after a family meeting and started living together. All I know about John is where he works and that he has a family of 4, his parents and a younger sister. Likewise, John probably doesn't know much about me either. There are things we wish the other knew, but we decided it's more fun to learn about each other gradually. However, both our parents requested we have a wedding. They told us it's a rite of passage, even if it's a small ceremony. Unable to decline, we began planning with the intention of fulfilling our duty to our parents. We planned for a small restaurant wedding just for the family. Still, we were flabbergasted to find out both our parents became close, and were planning a grand wedding without our knowledge. Nevertheless, John said, "If both our parents want it, let's do it." I had no choice but to agree. While I don't like complications, once I'm committed, I need to do things thoroughly. I meticulously checked details like invitations and welcome boards, ensuring everything was perfect. John laughed at the steadily finished pieces, saying, "Typical Amy, everything's so precise and warm." That praise made my day. It was during our wedding preparations. Our wedding planner, Lily, asked us to write down our profiles. We filled out the given forms with details, like where we were born and the elementary schools we graduated from. Lily glanced at my paperwork and looked surprised. "Amy, you only went to high school in the States?" "Yeah, I was preparing for college, but due to Dad's situation, I couldn't continue. I remember it being really tough." It was a sudden memory of Dad's abrupt assignment to Switzerland that made me chuckle a bit. "Wait, what? Amy, you're just a high school graduate? I seriously thought you had a college degree. I feel duped." "What did you say, John?" He didn't even acknowledge me. After handing his completed profile to Lily, he abruptly left, even though we were in the middle of our meeting. All we could do was stare, dumbfounded at John's retreating back. What on earth had just happened? Thankfully, the day's meeting was mainly about confirmations, so I handled the rest by myself. Rushing home, I was relieved to see lights on in the house. Entering, I overheard John on the phone. "Yeah, can you believe it? A high school graduate in this day and age. I thought I snagged a top-notch woman from a good place because she's attractive and competent at work, but she's just a high school graduate. Our kids would definitely get ridiculed. I wonder if her being so nitpicky is her way of compensating for her lack of intelligence," he said, laughing out loud. While we did marry soon after meeting, we had never discussed our educational backgrounds. I had no idea John had such an elitist view. Had I known, I wouldn't have married him. I decided to test John's character without revealing my actual education. Even if knowing my background brought us back together, if there's any future incident where my values don't align with John's, being looked down upon and living in fear isn't worth it. If that's the case, he's not the one for me. "I'm home!" I opened the living room door, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. John wrapped up his call, telling the person he'd call back. He then looked at me with cold, condescending eyes. Ugh, I've been thoroughly deceived by Amy. Guess you wanted to land a high-caliber guy like me with his high education. Bet you're pleased with yourself. I didn't even know about your educational background. Remember? We agreed to get to know each other more. You could easily find out. I graduated from a prestigious university. Agreeing to marry this quickly, in hindsight, is suspicious. This side of John was shocking, so mean-spirited. I loved his passion, but I never imagined he could be this impulsive and prejudiced. Deciding to check with my parents, I called home, only to find out they were hosting a party with parents-in-law. It's great that our families get along so well, but at this rate, our marriage was headed for disaster. I quickly relayed today's events to my dad over the phone and mentioned we might not go through with the wedding. I thought I told John about our family being stationed in Switzerland. Yes, I had mentioned living in Switzerland, and Lily has said, in America, it's just up to high school. So it's baffling how John associated that with just being a high school graduate. Plus, it's utterly disrespectful to those who work after high school or had circumstances that kept them from further studies. On the other end, it sounded like my parents and John's parents were having quite a party, with a lot of laughing. Anyway, I want to continue assessing John's character, so I'd appreciate it if they played along with the misunderstanding. I wasn't sure how much got through to the inebriated party, but John rarely contacts my parents, so it should be fine. After that, I tried to carry on with life as usual, but John's condescending attitude was palpable. He stopped doing chores. Previously, we'd share the tasks, but now everything fell on me. If I asked for help, he'd shoot back, "Do you want a divorce? Be grateful a high-spec guy like me even married a lowly high school grad like you." I felt increasingly repulsed by John, who frequently referred to himself as high-spec. On top of that, he dumped all wedding and honeymoon planning on me. John argued, "Given my high educational background, I have a demanding job. You, with your simple clerical tasks due to your education, surely have more time." And just like that, he stopped contributing to anything. Even though I earn slightly more than John, it seems like he's gotten something twisted in his head. Between work, household chores, and wedding preparations, I felt so overwhelmed. I worried I might collapse from exhaustion. The more I saw of John's behavior, the more I grew to despise him. But we were already legally married, and I had made promises to our parents. Once the wedding was over, we planned to sit down with both sets of parents to discuss our educational backgrounds and how we intended to live as a married couple. Though it's up to us to decide our future, right now our tempers and emotions are flaring. We need to calm down and focus on rebuilding our relationship. Since we've come together as a couple, it's essential not to hastily choose divorce. Holding on to that promise, I'm enduring our current situation. And then the long-awaited wedding day arrived. I felt guilty towards our parents, but truth be told, the spark in our marriage had already fizzled out. However, on that particular day, we played the part of a loving couple, greeting our family and work acquaintances with big smiles. Given the significant business ties, several high-ranking executives expressed their desire to attend, so we had sent out invitations. Looking back, I deeply regretted inviting them to a wedding of a couple on the brink of divorce. The guilt was overwhelming. "Amy, it's been a while," said Sam, John's predecessor, as he approached. "Long time no see. Thanks for coming," I replied. "Amy, I know it's not the best time, but is everything okay with John?" "What do you mean?" "Well, he mentioned you in a recent phone call, and I got concerned." "Is this about the high school graduate thing?" "Yes, I knew about your education in Switzerland and tried to gently correct him, but he wouldn't listen." So, Sam was the one John had been talking to. How could John speak so negatively about his wife, especially to someone from a business partner's company? As I chatted with Sam, other colleagues from John's company approached, showing concern. It seemed John had been bad-mouthing me a lot, and one of his bosses even told me directly that he couldn't support our marriage. Given that I'm being told this at our wedding, John must be making many uncomfortable at work, and they were all concerned for me. Seeing me surrounded by his colleagues, an annoyed John called out to me in a displeased tone. "Amy, it's time! Can't you even manage your time properly?" John scolded. I silently followed behind him, my emotions concealed. I doubt we appeared happy, even up close. I had hesitantly told my friends about our marital issues and suggested they might not want to attend the reception. Still, they insisted, wanting to be there for me. A few even flew in from Switzerland, and their tables, decorated with a Swiss touch, were a topic of interest among the guests. The wedding ceremony concluded without a hitch, and the reception began. Our bosses from both sides gave their welcoming speeches. Following a toast, the meals were served. Yet, throughout it all, John kept a sour expression and just kept drinking his alcohol. "John, that's enough drinking," I said, trying to intervene. Drunk and agitated, John blurted out, "It's all Amy's fault. I had this perfect life planned out. We'd have these amazing hybrid kids, be the envy of everyone, and now..." Suddenly, he got up, snatched the microphone from the host, and started ranting. "Hello, everyone! Thank you for being here. I'm a high-spec guy, having graduated from a top university. Yet, here I am, tricked into marrying a mere high school graduate. But since we're married, I'll try to educate her best I can." The room fell silent. John, seemingly expecting applause, looked around in confusion. Then my boss Daniel stood up and took the microphone. "John, are you talking about our Amy? It's funny, after finishing high school here, she went to Switzerland for college due to her father's job assignment. By the way, the head of our US branch rose from being a high school graduate. Is your company's philosophy to look down on such people? Studied in Switzerland?" John seemed to snap out of his drunken state instantly, staring at Daniel in shock. "Amy, is that true?" "Yes, I kept it a secret, but after graduating high school in the US, I went to Switzerland for college. I successfully graduated and even secured a job there, but due to a transfer to our US branch, I returned home with my family." "By the way," Daniel continued, holding the mic, "our US branch's CEO is a high school graduate who's worked their way up. Is John's opinion in line with your company's policies?" As Daniel glanced over at the groom's side with the microphone, John's colleagues uniformly shouted out, "No!" Given our company's superior standing, those from John's side were visibly panicking. Filled with rage, John confronted me. "Amy, why didn't you tell the truth? You've made me a laughingstock. We've never talked about our educational backgrounds, remember? And it's pretty disrespectful and presumptuous to look down on high school graduates." I responded, "It's all Amy's fault." John, stomping on the ground like a child, angrily blamed me. As I felt a wave of fear, sudden laughter erupted from a table nearby. It was that group of foreigners. In their unique accented English, they exclaimed, "Amy, you sure found a character! But seriously, divorce him as soon as possible." Blaming Amy? Huh, that's just hilarious! Their laughter was contagious, and soon the entire hall was in stitches, with everyone gazing at John and laughing till tears flowed. Humiliated, John's face turned beet red and he fled from the venue. I could see our in-laws chasing after him. He'd surely be caught soon. After that incident, Lily advised me to leave. The reception was cut short. My parents and in-laws, with assistance from relatives, returned the wedding gifts, apologizing to the attendees, and even provided transportation fare. That night, instead of returning to my place, I went back to my childhood home. The next day, since both Dad and I had taken a leave, we went together to pick up some belongings from our home. Even my parents, who usually hoped for the best, didn't push for reconciliation this time. They apologized for previously wanting us to make up. They probably hadn't realized just how twisted John had become. When I got home, John greeted me with a wide smile. "Amy, sorry for leaving early yesterday. I've thought about it. If you're not just a high school graduate, there's no issue. Let's live happily like we used to. I'll help around the house, and I miss the meals you make." His words and smile were reminiscent of our early days together. But this different John, so different from the past few months, was actually frightening. You expect me to just forget everything? I can't be with someone who's so prejudiced about education. I'll divorce you and claim compensation for all the verbal abuse you've thrown at me, including the wedding costs. What? We're not getting divorced. It's not my fault I didn't know. You should have told me. Now I feel like I should be the one claiming compensation. John, during our family meetings, we mentioned Amy lived in Switzerland from 18 till she started working. What did you think she was doing in Switzerland all those years? Well, the planner said she only went up to high school. In America, she only attended up to high school. That's what was said. You can't be vague like that. You should have clearly said she studied in Switzerland. So you're saying we didn't provide enough information? Exactly. You need to explain things clearly. If we need to explain everything from A to Z and you don't try to understand the context or ask questions, then every time you don't like what's being said, will my daughter always get verbally abused by you? I'm sorry, but we're taking her back. We can't leave her in a place where we know she'll get hurt. No, wait! It's just a typical marital spat. There's no need for a divorce now. I do care about Amy, and there's no reason for me to hurt her anymore. John's tone started to waver as my dad firmly suggested divorce. You might have decades together, but with different values, many issues will arise. There'll always be a reason for you to hurt her. Amy, let's go. Upon my dad's command, I quickly packed the essentials. John kept insisting that everything was fine and that they wouldn't divorce. Yet, anyone who looks down on others doesn't align with my values. It's that simple. Leaving a tearful John behind, I walked away from our home. I couldn't help but wonder, if he was so against the divorce that it brought him to tears, why did he continuously hurl such harsh words at me? Eventually, with the help of lawyers, the divorce was finalized and I was granted the compensation I had asked for. Even after the divorce, my parents remained close with my former in-laws. They often had parties at our place. One time, John's name came up in a conversation. He had continued his condescending behavior, both during the wedding reception and at work. This, combined with the distrust he caused with business partners, led his company to conclude that he didn't fit their values. As a result, he was moved away from any promotional path to a less significant role. Having always been prideful, he immediately handed in his resignation and left. Now he's working a part-time job. He's repeatedly mentioned wanting to move back home and promised to repay all the compensation money he owes. However, they've told him not to return until he's settled his debts. Despite this, they say he calls them nearly every day. According to my former in-laws, John had been pretty average throughout college. But during his job hunting days, he noticed a wealthy friend who had attended a more prestigious state university than him easily land a job at a major company through connections. Witnessing this made John believe that in the world, education, money, and connections were all that mattered, leading him to adopt a skewed perspective. Being among the more educated in his company, he received praise from his colleagues, which apparently didn't help. He began looking down on others, which led to the current situation. While John might have his reasons, the loss of important values like compassion and respect for others is his own responsibility. Unless he addresses his flawed character, he'll likely repeat the same mistakes wherever he goes. Not that it's my concern anymore. Recently, my company proposed that I return to our headquarters in Switzerland. Although my parents wish to stay in the US, after some contemplation, I've decided to start fresh and live alone in Switzerland. I spent my youth there, and in some ways, I feel more at home there than in the US. With an expected pay raise and the allure of potentially finding a new love, I'm hoping to find happiness once more. Marriage can be tough when you're stuck with weird in-laws. Christiana, the mother-in-law, looks worn out as she seeks sympathy from relatives. And she never gets better at cooking. Have you ever met an adult who can't learn? Layla, the sister-in-law, jumps in, adding fuel to the fire. Enough is enough. Armed with undeniable evidence, I step in front of the family. My name is Natasha, and I'm 29 years old. I got married 2 years ago and work part-time. My husband Justin has a full-time job. We met through friends and got married after dating for 2 years. We live in a house that was rebuilt on my in-laws' property. That was one of the conditions for our marriage. I initially opposed it because I wanted us to build our own home, but I've learned something since getting married. Justin never stands up to Christiana or Layla. He treats Christiana like she's a goddess, which was a shock to me. He tries to make sense of even her most nonsensical statements. Even when I suggested that living on the same property might be uncomfortable, Christiana shot it down. My opinions are secondary now, so we considered a two-family home. It would be cheaper to build and would save on utilities. But Christiana's selfishness exploded again. She insisted on living alone, complaining about hearing other people's noises, so we ended up building a small, separate house for her. I still don't understand why she was so against it. If anyone should be unhappy, it's me. She even refuses to install a shower in her place and comes over to ours every day. She insists on being the first to shower, claiming it affects her health otherwise. Every day, I come home to find Christiana has let herself in and is lounging around after her shower. She even goes through our fridge like it's her own. She complains, "At least keep some beer chilled for me after my shower. You're so inconsiderate." So now, we end up having dinner together every day. It's like we're living together, except she has her own big room. But that's not the only issue. As mentioned before, Justin has a sister. She's quite a character, and very different. Layla is still unmarried, and with her personality, marriage seems unlikely. She doesn't even seem like she could get a boyfriend. Layla is incredibly wasteful. She lives in an apartment 5 minutes away, but only works part-time. She says, "I'll quit my job when I get married, so why work full-time?" But I think the real reason is her obsession with a minor, unsuccessful idol. If you don't work part-time, you won't be able to take free time off. Even though it's a service industry, it's impossible for a full-time employee to take a day off every weekend. For Layla, these events are her top priority. She brags about being recognized at every event. She buys multiple $10 photos, and her room is filled with them. And that's not all. To keep up with her idol events, Layla always shops for secondhand designer goods at consignment stores. So she's always decked out in worn-out, outdated brands. Yet her pride is sky high, and she constantly looks down on me. I'm not into flashy fashion or secondhand items. Still, she snidely comments, "With your plain face, wearing those clothes, you'll just blend into the background." She's got a talent for backhanded compliments. Ever since I got married, Layla has been asking for stuff every time she sees me. Not just clothes and bags, she even takes photos against our home's walls to post on social media. She's a total show-off. She even asked to borrow my engagement ring for an idol event. I firmly refused. I can't risk losing it. What Layla and Christiana have in common is their high pride. Despite not having much income, they have expensive taste. They insist on organic vegetables and only eat meat from well-known brands. They even say we have to go to a poultry farm to buy eggs. Because these two eat dinner at our place almost every day, I've started to hate dinner time. They claim they're here to make sure Justin doesn't eat anything weird. Despite their health-conscious talk, both are surprisingly overweight. They must have a lot of snacks at home, and they take out their daily stress on me. Their demands make no sense. For example, they say, "Wash the curtains once a week. Dust and allergies will make us sick if you don't vacuum every day." I think twice a year is enough for the curtains. I've never seen anyone wash curtains weekly. We're two adults with dual income. Our house stays clean without daily vacuuming. They just want to complain about something. And yet their own homes are filled with clutter. There's no way someone with a dust allergy could live in such a place. You might wonder why I married into this family. Simply put, Justin deceived me. He told me grand lies. First, he said saving money was his hobby. We never splurged on dates, so I believed him. I'm not used to luxury, so his frugal lifestyle felt comfortable. I thought we'd save money to invest in our hobbies. When I shared this with Justin, he seemed very sympathetic. But after marriage, I found out his financial situation was entirely different. He's not the same person I dated. He also lied about enjoying his job. He tries to find excuses to skip work. His company probably knows. And his entire family just wants to work me to the bone. Here's the strange part. Justin told me to quit my full-time job when we got married. He said one condition of our marriage was for me to become a housewife. I was too excited at the time and lost my sense of judgment. I never liked my job, and I had always admired housewives. I saw posts from housewife friends who always kept their homes clean. I wanted to support my family in a sparkling clean home like hers. But once I started married life, everything was different from what I'd heard. First, when we were in the process of rebuilding the house, it turned out Justin had loans, so we couldn't get a mortgage. Even the home builder was surprised. We were told that if we had land, the loan would most likely be approved. About not having any other loans, Justin had lied. But we were already married, and I was determined to build the house, so I lent Justin the money. Before marriage, I never thought I'd be responsible for the debt Justin accumulated while he was single. The silver lining was that I liked to save money and had a decent amount saved up. That's how I could cover Justin's debt. Otherwise, I couldn't bear it. My savings were almost entirely depleted when we got married, and the day I could become a housewife never came. I had to look for part-time work right away. Fortunately, I found part-time work quickly, as long as I wasn't picky about the hours. Even with a day's income, it's tough to get by on Justin's salary alone. Plus, we want kids someday, and we need emergency funds. So I took all the part-time work I could get. But the people in our house are not cooperative at all. They treat me like a servant. They insist that housework is my sole responsibility. They don't even wash their own dishes. Christiana says part-time work doesn't count as a real job. It's insulting. I want to tell her to try working herself. But if I talk back, even a little, she says, if you can leave, then leave. There's a limit to what I can earn from part-time work. I regret quitting my job. Christiana tells me, you can't live without Justin's income. Women should be more submissive. I don't want to be told to be quiet by the world's most nagging woman, Christiana. I was troubled by the daily harassment from my in-laws. Then something unexpected happened. Layla had a mental breakdown. Apparently, she was deceived by someone she met on a dating app, spent all her money, and was ultimately abandoned. She said she bought him everything he wanted. She spent all her money, even her living expenses, and rent. At that moment, I inwardly laughed at Layla. Was it an illusion that she and Christiana looked down on me so arrogantly? But my laughter lasted only a short while. The impact somehow came back to me. Layla had always been living off part-time jobs. She earned enough for her living expenses, but she had zero savings. Well, she's working part-time. So what can you do? If she can't work because of her mental state, she can't pay rent. Not my problem. She should focus on reality instead of chasing handsome men. She's an adult. She needs to solve her own problems. Given this financial situation, a family meeting was held. Seeing Layla's grim face, I realized how scary illness can be. Christiana and Justin brought lots of Layla's favorite foods, trying to cheer her up. Layla is overweight, so she'd probably be fine without food for a few days. Then Christiana said something shocking to me. Healthy people should work. Natasha, you should send Layla $1.5K a month. I was speechless. Why should I send Layla, who brought this on herself, $1.5K every month? I couldn't wrap my head around Christiana's unexpected suggestion. $1.5K is too much, even for sending money to a college student. It's ridiculous. Then even Justin chimed in. Yeah, let's do that for now. If she doesn't have to worry about money, she'll get better quickly. Right now, let's just focus on her getting better. By the way, most of that $1.5K would go to pay off the debt she'd been accumulating on her credit card. Knowing that, I'm even less inclined to pay or lend her money. Whether she's genuinely sick or just acting, Layla is exuding an aura of unhappiness. If I send her $1.5K, it would eat up most of my part-time earnings. I refused, but the whole family blamed me. Even Justin said, if something happens to my sister, can you take responsibility? As if it's my fault she's unwell. Honestly, even if I refused, there's no more money coming from my in-laws. In the end, I had to send the money. Christiana and Layla still don't help with any housework. I wake up at 3 a.m. every day to finish all the housework before going to my part-time job. I send Layla $1K and even pay an additional $500 for her rent. Why should I pay her rent? Well, if she loses her place, she'll end up at our house, which is the last thing I want. Everyone in this house, including Justin, sees me as nothing more than a convenient source of money. 3 months later, Christiana announced that she's inviting all the relatives for a small home party. She said 40 people would be coming. There's no way our house can accommodate that many people. Christiana says, just connect the guest room and the living room. But I don't want to let 40 strangers into my house. In this day and age, social distancing is necessary. I managed to book a nearby restaurant, but I had to handle the reservation, the food, and the payment. Christiana, who's been nothing but trouble, didn't even say thank you. She told me, "You're finally becoming useful. You should thank me, your nurturing parent." At this point, I don't even feel like talking anymore. Relatives often say things like, "You've had a tough day, haven't you?" Or, "Thank you for everything." But Christiana and a now healthy Layla say things like, "Don't praise her too much. She's always such a useless wife. She'll get carried away." It really ticks me off. Then Layla looks at me and says, this is delicious. I'm so glad it's not Natasha's cooking. It's been a while since I've genuinely enjoyed a meal. She's always so careless." "Absolutely. She's always a mess," they say, laughing crudely between themselves. Then, to the still single folks, they add, "You really suffer when you marry a weirdo. You should be more discerning." My mother-in-law tries to gain sympathy from the relatives with her tired expression. "She never improves her cooking. I've never seen an adult with such a lack of learning ability." Layla chimes in, saying whatever she pleases. I decided it was time to execute my plan. If you dislike me this much, it's becoming difficult to stay in this family. When I say that, all the relatives look shocked. They're surprised because I've never talked back before. Justin tries to hush me in a panic, but I won't be silenced anymore. I thought this was a good opportunity to expose Christiana and Layla's true nature. I say, "Christiana, Layla, I apologize for being an incompetent wife." They look satisfied. "Good, you understand. Now be quiet. Don't meddle in other people's affairs." Other people. At that moment, all my doubts disappeared. I've reached my limit. I can't send money to Layla or pay the rent anymore. The room buzzes with chatter from the relatives. Everyone is confused. I explain to everyone, "I'm glad Layla is feeling better. I was worried when she got scammed on that dating app." Christiana desperately tries to silence me, but it's too late. The relatives won't let it go. They all want to hear the details. I tell them how Layla got scammed and became depressed, how I was sending her money, and how I was the only one doing housework because my family wouldn't lift a finger. The relatives are all extremely angry. First off, it seems like no one even knew Layla had a part-time job. She had everyone believing she worked at a big corporation, so you can imagine the shock. "Why aren't you working then? Why are you so broke?" Questions started pouring in from all the relatives. Seems like she couldn't lie anymore, so she started to spill the beans. When she tried to say she wasn't working due to health reasons, I had to correct her. "Come on, stop lying. You're just living life around your failed idol career." Layla glares at me. Justin steps in. "Enough! She's finally getting her spirits up." But I know she's been fine for a while. I know she's been attending idol events every day last month. It's infuriating to see her take photos with random guys for $10 each, all on my dime. I exposed everything, from her reckless spending to her death and the mysterious money transfers. Then Layla starts fake crying, claims I've been bullying her and Christiana. I couldn't believe the audacity, but I had prepared for moments like this by gathering plenty of evidence. When I played the audio of Christiana and Layla bullying me, the whole family was in an uproar. I then announced my decision to divorce. I also told them that I had already packed my bags and was ready to leave the house. My husband was both shocked and angry. He probably didn't like being called out in front of everyone. The relatives were furious with my in-laws, saying, "This is totally different from what we've been told." Their support boosted my confidence. Although my husband was angry, the relatives backed my decision to divorce, and it was finalized without a hitch. We're not a wealthy family, so I couldn't expect any alimony or property division. However, with the help of my relatives, I was able to arrange for the money I had lent and sent over the years to be paid back in installments. I had thought that money was gone for good, so it felt like a win. I got him to sign the divorce papers in front of everyone and immediately filed them. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. My mood instantly brightened. No more mysterious money transfers or rent payments. I now have a lot more financial freedom. I'm happy that I can finally buy stylish clothes that I haven't been able to afford for a long time. Divorcing was definitely the right move. After that, my in-laws fell apart almost immediately. Well, of course, they couldn't possibly sustain their lifestyle without my income. My part-time earnings were much higher than my husband, so it was inevitable. He was often skipping work and had switched to being paid daily. He had been lying to me and spending his days gambling. There's no way a household of 3 spendthrifts could ever work out. 4 months after the divorce, I happened to pass by my old house and saw a for sale sign. I couldn't help but smile, thinking, serves them right. Since that family gathering, some relatives have been concerned about me and kept in touch. They often update me on what's happening with my former family. From what I've heard, they can't make ends meet and have moved into an old apartment. It's one of those rare places where the toilet and bath are shared. Proud as they are, Layla and Christiana seem humiliated and even more withdrawn. With no money for outings and 3 arrogant people crammed into a small space, it's no wonder they're at each other's throats. Being alone has made me feel free, and I've started to enjoy my work. People around me have noticed that I've become happier, and I think the divorce was a good decision. In fact, I was offered a full-time position from my part-time job, and now I'm financially stable. I'm amazed at how everything has been moving in a positive direction since the divorce. I now have some financial breathing room and am enjoying investing in myself. From now on, I plan to take better care of myself and grab hold of happiness.
At a wedding reception, the MC announces, Olivia would like to say a few words to everyone. Olivia takes the mic and says, Hey everyone, let me just say the bride's family is so poor, they'll be working until the end of their lives. I was stunned. I'm Emily, 31 years old. Currently engaged to Noah, who's the same age. I love Noah, but to be honest, I'm not so keen on Olivia. But my married friends tell me mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts are pretty much universal, so I guess it's inevitable. Still, I can't help but feel it's a bit much. My first impression of Olivia was terrible. This happened during a family meeting. The first thing she asked was, So, what did your parents do for a living? They're retired now, aren't they? What did they do before retiring? She didn't even say welcome or anything like that. She asked this before I even had a chance to sit down. Noah, why is your mom asking this before we've even sat down? Noah quickly tried to intervene, but Be quiet, Noah, she brushed him off. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, I answered while still standing. Well, they're still working. Then she barraged me with questions like, What? They're still working? So did they have you when they were really young? Did they drop out of school to have you? Were you a teen pregnancy? I don't think teen pregnancy is inherently bad, but her tone was so prickly it disappointed me. I answered honestly, we grow strawberries in greenhouses. We are farmers, so there's no such thing as retirement age for us. My dad is 62 and he's still going strong. She replies, What? 60 is a retirement age for most people, you know. Even James retired, but now he's a CEO. He'll probably work until he's 67 because he's the founder of Wilson Electronics. Mom, Noah interrupts her with a weary tone. However, Olivia points at me, still standing, and goes on a tirade. Listen, Noah, you don't get it. Your spouse will be with you for twice as long as you've lived your 31 years. Over time, the gap where you two grow up will slowly eat away at you, Noah. Are you sure you want to be with someone from such a low-status family? Just then, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the house. James had returned. "I'm home." A voice came from the entrance. And then, "Ah, you've traveled far. Let's have some tea. Please have a seat." Olivia's demeanor changed in an instant. "Ah." I was at a loss for words. The transformation was as if she had been in a bad dream. That's how it felt. "I'm really sorry for making you uncomfortable." Noah apologized on our way home. "Ah, yeah." Truth be told, I wasn't feeling great either, so I couldn't say, "It's fine." But what was that all about? After James arrived, we all spent time pleasantly in the living room. I couldn't tell if the weird vibe before was the dream, or if the good times after James arrived were the dream. I felt confused and disoriented. It seemed my bewildered expression gave me away. You see, Mom has this pride about starting a successful business from scratch. But that's no reason to hurt you. I'll have a stern talk with her, Noah said. "Ah, I see." It became clear that Olivia's real nature was what we saw before James arrived. But Noah's stern words only fueled combative spirit. From then on, she became even more hostile towards me. And as we had several occasions to meet, like during wedding preparations, "Are you sure you're actually going through with this wedding, even though you are so poor?" Olivia would say to us every time we met. "We're not that poor," I managed to reply. "But you are definitely poorer than us," she retorted. "Absolutely. I don't know how much income Noah's family has, but I know they have a successful business." "Enough, Mom." Even Noah slammed his hand on the table in anger. "A marriage between the two people involved, isn't it? And your attitude, criticizing Emily's family behind Dad's back and trying to make her back out of the wedding, is just unbearable. It's really underhanded. You know what? If you hate the idea of our marriage that much, you don't have to come to the wedding. Dad said he has to miss it because of important overseas business dealings. So, how about both parents just don't attend?" This seemed to light a fire under Olivia. "We'll see about that wedding," she muttered, leaving her words hanging in the air. I had thought that her words were merely a case of sour grapes after being confronted head-on by Noah, but I was wrong. On the day of the wedding, it all erupted in the grand fashion. The ceremony went off without a hitch, transitioning into the wedding reception. I was in a pristine white dress. Noah was in a grey tuxedo. We both sheepishly complimented each other. "You look beautiful." "Noah, you look great too." We were enveloped in our own happiness. As we sat at the head table, the MC hurried over and whispered, Olivia wants to make a speech." "What?" I looked up to see Olivia, already front and center, poised to speak. She stood tall. "I have something very important to address in front of you all," Olivia said confidently. Unable to think of a reason to object, we had no choice but to let her proceed. Then, microphone in hand, Olivia began. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Olivia, the groom's mother." The unexpected introduction from Olivia quieted the room for a moment. Unfazed, Olivia continued. "As the wife of the founder of Wilson Electronics, I've diligently raised Noah to be the future CEO. However, he's ended up with this kind of bride." "This kind of bride?" I was stunned. frozen at the head table. Just moments ago, I was basking in the joy of being with a happy Noah and the blessings from everyone. Now, my inner warmth plummeted below freezing. Olivia probably intended that. I had played right into Olivia's hands. Then she added, I hesitated to bring this up at the ceremony, but for the sake of Noah's future, I'll say it. The bride comes from a poor family that will have to work until the end of their lives. What? What's this about? Noah raised his voice. It seemed Olivia had anticipated this reaction as well. Noah is the one to blame. He wouldn't listen to any of us who tried to stop this. I'm telling you about his wife's dark past now, so he'll finally see sense. And, Noah, you called me petty, remember? I tried to handle this delicately for your sake. But now, I'm done pulling my punches. Wake up, Noah, you pitiful man, seduced by a vixen. The voice raged through the microphone. A dark past? I was at a loss for words, my mind filled with despair. Up on the stage, I wondered how defeated my face must have looked. The bride who had been all smiles just moments ago. From the audience's perspective, I must have appeared pitiful. I had dressed up beautifully, stood beside Noah, and was truly happy. Why does all this have to be ruined by such nonsense? Surprisingly, the atmosphere in the venue was entirely contrary to my miserable feelings. Noah patted my shoulder and hugged me. Don't worry, Mom has really pushed me too far this time. The room went quieter still. I lifted my gaze, which had been lowered onto the table, and cautiously looked around the room. Was everyone as stunned by the outburst as I was? Or did they actually see me through Olivia's alleged dark past? Neither was true. Everyone was hunched over, shoulders shaking. They were holding back laughter. And then a suppressed "huh" burst out from someone, and the room erupted in laughter. Everyone was doubling over, laughing uncontrollably. Olivia wore a baffled expression, going, "Huh? Huh?" I was also perplexed, staring blankly at the room. Who's poor, Olivia? You're the last person who should be laughing at anyone. Benjamin finally spoke, his face a mix of tears and laughter. Wow, talk about out of sight, out of mind, he added. What? Olivia looked astonished, genuinely clueless. Then Lucas spoke up, wiping away tears of laughter. We are talking about the same person who asked my parents for $200,000 when starting their business and borrowed another $20,000 each from us siblings. One by one, other family members joined in. I thought it was odd that only their family was asked for $200,000. But then I heard you yelling, "If I knew your son would be such a loser and get fired, I'd never have married him. So I guess it couldn't be helped," said another relative. Voices from Olivia's side of the family also chimed in. When you borrowed money from us, you promised to work until the end of my days. To work as if dancing? Who was that? It seemed like Olivia had been reminded of something. She couldn't find the words to argue back and looked down. Sure, I always knew James was an honorable guy. When he made his company a success, I knew part of it was due to his great character. So, when he paid me back with interest, I thought, I'm glad the money I lent could help. But hearing you talk on this stage about how I'm leveraging my parents' money, it made me think maybe you should pay them back in heaven. It seemed that was the truth. After all her talk demeaning me as poor, She herself had been demanding money. Now, it was my turn to look down and hold back laughter. May we say something? Amid the laughter, a person dressed in formal attire stood up with a commanding voice. A formal dress meant, yes, it was my mom. She walked assertively up to Olivia, crossed her arms, and exerted pressure with a glare. What do you mean by poor family? I meant exactly what I said. The focus had shifted, and Olivia seemed relieved. She took an aggressive stance toward my mom. You're still working, even though you've reached retirement age. That's what poor families do. That's why I hate farmers. So presumptuous. I could even see spit flying towards my mom from my seat. This time, my mom laughed right in Olivia's face. Olivia, you really crack me up. You look down on us as just farmers without even knowing what we do. She then pointed at my dad. Our strawberries often weigh over 2 ounces each. We're growing a $500 a berry variety called Emily Princess, and we challenge the Guinness World Records every year. Dad seemed oddly shy as he said, well. Then my mom threw down the gauntlet. What's so wrong with working till the end of your life? How about saying we're challenging world records till the end of our lives? My name is Emily. That variety of strawberry was named after me. What? Caught off guard by the scale of it all, Olivia looked dazed. Over 2 ounces a berry, you see. Mom uses her fingers to show the size. About 2 to 3 inches, easily 3 times the size of a regular strawberry. You've never had one, have you? I know you wanna say it, being all high and mighty. Olivia slumps down in her seat. Mom looks down at Olivia, snickering as if to mock her. Right after my mom shuts Olivia down, guess Noah was right. Olivia was looking down on us. Another voice echoes from a different table. What's that voice? It's a voice I recognize. Olivia looks at the table and her eyes start spinning again. Is Olivia's life over? That table is for the groom's friend, and the person standing there is James. The room buzzes. Amid the chatter, James starts to speak. I heard from Noah that Olivia opposed the marriage. Trash-talking Emily's family behind my back. Olivia thought she could do this because she always talks about the dignity of work, thinking she can't demean Emily or her family in front of me. Noah told me Olivia's comments during our planning meetings were underhanded. Olivia, you were doing an honorable job as a homemaker. I assumed you respected the concept of work and respected me as well. So I told Noah Olivia would never say such a thing. I managed to reschedule my business trip and told Noah that I could attend the wedding. Noah said I should sit at his friend's table. It would be a chance to engage with the younger generation, something I could leverage in my career. So I agreed. I kept my attendance a secret, but now I know Noah was right. It's being a homemaker a lifelong job. If you understood that, you'd never demean anyone for working till the end of their life. If you belittle someone's work, it means you don't take your job seriously. Olivia, you're fired from homemaking, and if you think you drew the short straw, then it's time to end this. I looked at Noah. James' name wasn't on the seating chart of the invitation. But just because it wasn't on the chart didn't mean there wasn't a seat for him. Noah nonchalantly said to me, Mom told me to enjoy the wedding. That was the day after Dad said he'd somehow make it to the wedding. I took precautions, it's common sense to prepare for a declaration of war. James moved Olivia aside with his hand as she slumped down. He grabbed the microphone from her and started speaking. Thanks to all of you, our company has grown significantly. We are forever grateful for this. To Emily's parents, who raised her to be the woman she is today, and for agreeing to have her marry my foolish son Noah, I offer my deepest gratitude. Olivia remained slumped over, trembling and curling up. Relatives, James and our parents, everyone was pointing fingers. It was indeed a situation where she was isolated on all sides. But, leaving Olivia aside, "Congratulations, Emily!" Applause erupted from everywhere. The atmosphere instantly switched to one of celebration. "Work until the end of my life? Sounds great! I'll dance till I drop. Dance until the end of time." The wedding reception ended as a lively party. In the end, James and Olivia separated. James' reason for the separation was this: he takes pride in his work. He doesn't see eye to eye with people who belittle the concept of working. And unless someone who behaved so rudely at the wedding was excluded from the family, it wouldn't be possible to apologize properly to my dad and mom. Olivia had whined about not wanting to work at her age close to the end of her life, but after discussions, they divorced. She reluctantly started working. She had belittled James by saying, "Anyone can work," showcasing her arrogant character. She couldn't keep a job. Noah told me she's still unemployed, and has even asked him for financial help, which he declined. He said he has cut ties with her. As for my dad and mom, their mega strawberry is just inches away from making it to the Guinness Book. The giant fruit was valued at $500, and even after reaching retirement age, they've built a lavish mansion paid in full. And we are living in the second lavish mansion. And Noah became the second-generation president of Wilson Electronics. Valuing the sanctity of work as experience in this wedding, Noah is doing well as a business leader. And now I'm pregnant with the third-generation president-to-be. With strictness and love, I want to raise our child to find joy in work and become a person everyone can respect, says Noah. He isn't even born yet, but settling on an educational approach is crucial. And I know that a child of this man will surely grow up to be such a person. Feels safe to be born. I rubbed my belly.
Don't act so high and mighty after just 4 years. Stop contacting me. Fine by me. I was utterly disgusted by Alice's attitude. She never considered me her mother-in-law, not even for a second. Why did Michael marry someone like her? Just you wait. I vowed to myself that I would stand up to Alice. My name is Tracy, and I'm 70 years old. My family consists of my son Michael and my grandson Hank. Michael is 45 this year, and Hank is 18. Hank is set to go to college this fall. Ever since Michael got married, he's lived far away. He moved a considerable distance from my home, so he doesn't visit often. Michael is my only child, so when he first moved out after getting married, I felt incredibly lonely. I've gotten used to it now, but I still look forward to his occasional visits and seeing Hank. It feels like Hank was born just yesterday, and now he's off to college. Time really does fly. Then I got news that Hank's college is near my home. Would it be okay if Hank stays with you? He's having trouble finding a place to live. That's the message I got from Michael. Of course, I was thrilled. Living with Hank, who's been away for so long, felt like a dream. My husband passed away early, so I've been living alone. I've gotten used to being by myself, but living with someone again is exciting. Absolutely, I immediately replied to Michael. Thanks, that's a relief. Michael seemed relieved too. I quickly started tidying up the house to prepare for Hank's arrival. My home, which I hadn't cleaned in a while, became quite neat with Hank's stay as a catalyst. Finally came the day Hank was to arrive. Granny, thank you for having me. Hank is a polite and confident young man, just like Michael. I was relieved he takes after him. Why not Alice? It became clear right away. This place is as messy as ever. Alice walked in saying that. My daughter-in-law's name is Alice. She's about the same age as Michael, and I've disliked her from the moment we met. She makes cutting remarks and has no problem disrespecting me or Michael. Michael doesn't seem to mind, but I've been hurt by Alice's words many times. The most hurtful was our very first meeting. Nice to meet you. I initially thought she was a good person. She's petite and has a cute face. But her words that followed were harsh. Wait, you live in this dump? That was her first comment upon seeing my home during our initial meeting. I was shocked that someone would say something like that. Our house is old, you know. Michael quickly came to my rescue. I thanked him silently in my heart. The house was built when my husband and I got married, so it's definitely old. I knew it was getting old, but was it necessary to say that at our first meeting? Besides, it's not common courtesy to call someone's house old. Sorry if that bothered you. I just say what's on my mind. Alice apologized to Michael without even looking at me. Does she not see me? Or is she blatantly ignoring my existence? Either way, I was fuming. She had insulted the home filled with memories that my husband and I built. From that first meeting, I knew I couldn't stand Alice. Decades have passed, and my feelings haven't changed. I'm grateful she gave me my adorable grandson, Hank, and married my only son, Michael. But her daily attitude made it impossible for me to get along with her. She generally talks down to people, including me, her mother-in-law. Who's the idiot who did this? Everyone is so incompetent. Whenever the family gathers, she speaks harshly to Michael and me. She could be kinder, and instead of saying it directly, she makes snide remarks, which is infuriating. What does Michael see in Alice like this? Watching them, it always seems like Michael is accommodating Alice. Michael has always been considerate of others and seldom speaks his mind. In contrast, Alice always wants to have her way. It's only natural that Michael ends up being the submissive one. I've always been worried about him. Is he being mistreated? Is he facing any unfairness? But Michael always keeps smiling. He's kind when he comes home, and since Hank takes after him, I feel relieved. As for Alice, minimal interaction is enough. That's what I thought. Now, back to the day Hank arrived. This place is as messy as ever. I've learned to ignore Alice's snide remarks. At first, like Michael, I tried to smooth things over so the atmosphere wouldn't get awkward, but it became tiresome to deal with her constant jabs. The first time she insulted me, I was so bothered I couldn't sleep. I was so distressed there were days I couldn't leave the house. But engaging with her only stressed me out. It's not good for my mental health. So over the years, I've mastered the art of ignoring her. I think I've grown quite a bit. We should consider some repairs soon. Michael always cares about the house. He's a blessing. But Alice objected. Why spend money on that? Let's expand our own house instead. Alice clearly doesn't care about my home, or should I say, she doesn't care about the family. To Alice, her opinion is the only one that matters. She doesn't listen to Michael or me. Well, it's not urgent, so it's fine. As always, Michael is good at smoothing things over. Mom, please take care of Hank. Of course, I'm looking forward to living together. See you, Mom, Dad. Hank and I saw Michael and Alice off to their car. Alice didn't even say goodbye to me. She briskly got into the car. Michael gave a quick wave, and they left. Finally, some freedom. Ah, Hank sighed. What's the matter? Hank seemed somewhat happy. Isn't he lonely being away from his parents? I feel refreshed being away from Mom. What do you mean? Hank opened up to me. Mom always badmouths people. I was sick of hearing it every day. So Alice is like that at home, too. That's why I chose to live far away. I feel bad leaving Dad alone, but I'm going to enjoy my new life. I'll support you as much as I can. Thanks, Granny. Even her own child dislikes her. I thought she was beyond redemption. At the same time, I vowed to fully support Hank's college life. I'll take better care of him than Alice ever could. And so, Hank's college life began. Once college started, Hank became incredibly busy. I don't remember being this busy in my time. The number of Hank's classes is like that of a high school student. Being a college student these days must be tough. It's what I've always wanted to study. Despite the busyness, Hank is positively focused on his academics. The energy of youth is something else. Seeing him like this gives me energy every day. Since Hank moved in, Michael and Alice have been visiting more frequently. They used to come only during summer and Christmas vacations, but now they visit once a month. I'm happy they're thinking of Hank, but the increased contact with Alice has become a concern. Is Mom here again? Are you getting proper meals? Are you okay? I was already worn out by Alice's usual cutting remarks. It's as if she's implying that I'm mistreating Hank. Granny always gives me delicious meals. Thanks to her, my student life is going well. I was touched by Hank's words. Hank always seems busy, but knowing he feels this way made me happy. Is that so? Alice was visibly annoyed. Such childish behavior for an adult. After giving Hank a mysterious lecture, she left looking satisfied. As for Michael, he seemed genuinely concerned about Hank. Is Hank causing any trouble? Is he helping you out, Granny? He's not just concerned about Hank, but also about me. I always wish it was just the three of us in this family. Why did Michael marry someone like Alice? It's true. After Michael left, I talked with Hank. Mom doesn't even see you as a person, Granny. I feel bad for Dad having to live with her every day. Not seeing me as a person? Those words cut deep. I felt ashamed that Hank saw it that way too. So while Hank was in college, I tried to avoid Alice as much as possible. Time flew by, and 4 years have passed since Hank started college. It's gone by so fast since I moved here. Hank is graduating from college this year. Finally, it's time for him to enter the workforce. These past 4 years have felt faster than any before. Maybe it's because Hank was here with me. You've worked hard these 4 years. I'm glad you're graduating. It's all thanks to your support, Granny. It's not thanks to me. Hank worked hard in his studies. He's also secured a job nearby. Granny, I have something to discuss. What is it? Hank suddenly wanted to talk. I want to keep living here after I graduate. What? Mom's annoying when I go home, and it's closer to work from here. Hank had always disliked Alice. I was happy he wanted to continue living here. Of course you can. Hank immediately reported this to Michael over the phone. I'll be coming home for a while. School ended, and Hank decided to go home for a bit. He didn't want to, but it seemed Michael had asked him to come. The house felt lonely after Hank left. Then the phone rang. It was Alice. Why is Hank staying at your place? Alice was furious. At first, I didn't understand what she was talking about. Hank should be living with us. Why does he want to stay there, even after getting a job? It seemed Alice wanted Hank to come home. But staying here was Hank's decision. I thought there was no point in her complaining to me. It was Hank's decision to stay here. Don't complain to me about it. But Alice's defiance didn't stop. Why are you acting so high and mighty when you've been living apart all this time? I had no intention of acting superior. What are you misunderstanding? I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't act so important just because of 4 years. Stop contacting us. Alice didn't even seem grateful that I had been housing Hank. I didn't do it for her sake. I had been doing my best for these 4 years, hoping to support Hank in some way. Hank will be living here from now on, just so you know. Alice had decided everything on her own. Hank's belongings were still here, but she even said it was fine because they would buy new ones. I didn't want anything more to do with Alice, who could dismiss people so easily. I couldn't forgive her anymore. Fine by me. I said that and hung up the phone. Alice had stolen time from Hank and me. I looked back on the happy 4 years. What could Hank be thinking now? But she told me not to contact them anymore. It would be too late if something happened to Michael or Hank after I reached out. For a while, I spent my days alone. At first, I missed Hank, but after some time, I realized I felt relieved to be rid of Alice. It's for the best, I reassured myself. Then, 6 months later, Michael suddenly contacted me. What could it be? Mom, I want you to be there too. The thought of Alice being at home made me hesitant to go. But it was Michael's request. I nervously visited Michael's house. When I got there, Alice and Hank were sitting. I'm really disappointed. For once, Michael sighed. What on earth had happened? She's been using Hank's and my money without permission. Michael pointed at Alice. What do you mean? Apparently, after bringing Hank back home, Alice became even more controlling over Michael and Hank. She had been taking their money and using it as she pleased. That's why I didn't want to go back. Hank was also disappointed. Alice was hanging her head, saying nothing. Well, someone who can't appreciate their mother-in-law can't appreciate their family either. My long-suppressed anger was finally erupting. Being alone had almost made me forget, but seeing Alice's face brought back all the harassment she had done. Every single act of harassment by Alice. Sorry for the old and dirty house. Did you want Michael's money that badly, even if it came from such a place? I was surprised at how fluently I could express my disdain. I used to be too timid to say anything. What is it? What? Go on, say it. At my words, Alice was taken aback. When confronted by the whole family, Alice seemed unable to argue back. She looked like a completely different person from the usually assertive Alice. If you can't value your family, you need to leave this house, I shouted at Alice. I don't want that. I couldn't understand why she would cling now after betraying her family. How selfish could she be? Listen to your past self. Understand what you've done. That's right. Granny has been suffering all this time. I hate this home, too. Hank joined in the anger. He must have had even more unpleasant experiences than I had. Making your own child feel this way is unacceptable as a parent. Alice has been nothing but a source of fear for a long time. This ends now. Michael muttered. I was surprised by Michael's words, since he had been silent all along. Why? You think of Hank and me as nothing more than servants, don't you? I never thought that. But both Hank and I have been enduring it. Emotional scars have been left. Any excuses now are futile. Then Michael handed Alice divorce papers. I'm going to live with Hank and Mom, so we're done. No way. Too bad, but you brought this on yourself. Alice had nothing to say in response to my words. And so Michael and Alice got divorced without any issues. I was truly relieved. Living as a family of 3 had always been my dream. Living with Hank and Mom. Michael's words made me happier than anything else. And so, life as a family of 3 with Michael and Hank began in my home. I couldn't say it before. About Alice? I was scared. Anything I said would make her angry. Michael was emotionally wounded too. He had suffered significant damage during his married life. Michael would need some time to rest. I heard that they had filed for the return of the money Alice had spent. But Alice had a spending habit and no savings. Now she's in debt and in a difficult situation to pay back the money. But that's also Alice's own doing. Dad really had poor judgment. I don't want to hear that from Hank. Even Hank was saying it. Of course, I thought the same, but I couldn't say it in front of them. From now on, let's all live peacefully together. Absolutely. Agreed. And so, our family's new life began. Living with a larger group after so long felt refreshingly new. I want to live peacefully and get along as a family of 3.